Our meeting to order. Let's say the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We asked to meet this morning with our department heads to get some preliminary work done on our budget. I'm sure everyone understands that with the decline in revenue from the state of Dakota, we're going to be looking at being extremely frugal in our upcoming budget. With that, we wanted to get together with each of the department heads, give them a preliminary look at the wage scale that has been brought out through Tanya Weiler. And then to ask each of you if you have projects coming up that you think would need to be addressed and how we can cut some of the counties are looking at as much as a 10% budget cut. I don't know if we're there yet. And we will again need to start as high as we possibly can, because once we submit our preliminary, of course we can't go up any longer. But yeah, that's where we're at. So I don't know, does anybody want to start? Oh, sure. I'm sorry you didn't get it though.
No.
Oh, okay. I thought they
Be a good place to start.
Yeah, that'd be a good place to start. I'm sorry, I didn't realize that you didn't have it.
Salary survey?
Yeah. Christy, do you have any preliminary budget numbers to look at as far as wages go?
No, not at this time.
Okay, how soon will you get those?
I can have them early next week.
Okay. Because of course that's a big part of the total picture. I don't know if Steve is gone. Mark? Steve Nelson, is he gone? Okay.
He hasn't said anything.
But he was notified, right?
I believe so.
Okay.
We got the email.
He got the email.
Sometimes he was on the email roster, that doesn't mean he looks at it, but
Whether he wanted it or not.
sometimes he doesn't check his mail every day.
In looking at the market movement, did the rest of you get a chance to look at that on the last page?
Could I get a copy of that, please, or is that been?
Elizabeth making some.
Oh, okay, thank you.
No, are you the only one that doesn't have a copy of it?
I don't have one, I didn't bring one with me, but it's not.
Yeah. Oh, Beth doesn't have one either.
I have some stuff, but I don't know what you
We
guys
probably
have.
need 4 or 5 of those, but don't, yeah.
Mine is a shorter version, I can print this for
I got 3 days.
You guys cut the personnel? Thinking about it? That sucks.
Yeah, it all kind of feels that way.
He's on our, we just got that yesterday.
You just got them yesterday?
I forwarded it to you.
Yeah.
That was pretty good news.
Yeah. Kristen doesn't have one, and then if you can give one to, you can give one to Rhonda.
Okay,
And,
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you,
I
Betty.
think we'll share.
And I think Bill stated in the past that the county commission has made a commitment to get and keep salaries on an even keel with the rest of the state and with the area that we live in. And I think that's why you see some of those market movements of as much as 7.8%. What, I guess Betty, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts as far as looking at our budget? We're looking in your crystal ball and seeing what you think the value of the meal is gonna be in a preliminary form and where we should go from there.
Well, I was tweaking the budget to get the abstract into the state yesterday, and right now the final number without using last year's utilities, a mill is about 53,300, and that's because we have a huge increment district, but once those go back on the tax rolls, that makes a big difference. I haven't got anything on the last Blue Shield. I talked to Carrie again, and she said the end of this month, she couldn't promise me any sooner. She couldn't give me any percentages. But I would say we're gonna have to go up a little bit. Our fund is doing well, so I don't think we'll have to go up as much as they anticipate until I actually get that from Blue Cross. But it's been pretty stable. Our claims, some weeks are really high, sometimes they're low. They fluctuate anywhere between, the lowest it's been is 30,000, the highest it's been is 25, 30,000 a week. And so that's where the money goes into that fund, and then we pay out our claims, plus we pay a small premium to Blue Cross Blue Shield to handle over the 20,000 per individual that we have on our stop loss. As far as wages, I think the board should go with what she recommends due to the fact we've been always trying to keep in with the market so we don't fall behind. I think everybody can tweak their budget so that we will be under, try to keep it where it was this last year or maybe put it under a little bit. I don't know what everybody has plans for spending, but for now, my office is up to par on computers for this next coming year. I think there's some probably new equipment in some other office they need, but, and then furniture, the only furniture I anticipated replacing was the commission room for this year. that's in this year's budget, so. Other than that, if you guys have questions, I can try to answer them.
Did Tanya give you any kind of a narrative as to, you know,
Where she got these.
where she got the,
She went on the Association of Counties, plus on job service, plus she said the market fluctuated so much this year because there was 3 counties that had to come into play that hadn't been in where they should be, so they were gradually bringing their employees up to where they should be in the market. So she said that had a lot to do with the fluctuation, so. And one of them was Walsh County, and they're more similar to our size.
and I agree, we did make a commitment to be the premier employer in the county when, in fact, that was the statement that came out of a big meeting that we had several years ago. And I think we have been doing a good job with that. I think for a preliminary budget, in my opinion, we should go with recommendation and ask any of the department heads if they know of anything in their budgets that's gonna be a major increase or see anything coming up that we should be aware of so that we budget for that as well. And then through the process, we'll determine whether or not we have enough money to get all that done. So, like Elizabeth said, we can always go down, but we can't go up after we post the, and when does that have to be posted now?
The first publication is in September.
In September, so we do have time to do some finagling, but if everybody can look at their budgets and see if there's anything major that they see coming up or whatever that's gonna alter the budget that they had for this year and increase it. I know there are some other people that are gonna be coming in asking for a little more money too, so.
Right.
Well, I don't know, you always got the other agencies like
Airport library.
airport, like, you know, other people, airport library. I don't know for the fact that they are going to come in that way, but, you know, there's other ones we've always had. People who haven't budgeted enough, maybe senior meals or whoever, you know, that need more money, so. Those won't come until probably we meet with all of those in August.
Starting August, yes.
So the way we've handled it in the past is that if the department heads know of anything in their budgets, like if Roger sees something failing with the building that we're gonna need to address, or somebody has a major project or something that they need to get taken care of, we should know that up front. Any hirings or anything like that.
You ought to know that by when?
Well, I mean, this is just a preliminary meeting, we, you know, we're open to suggestions right now.
Oh,
If
okay,
anybody sees anything
I
that,
have one.
I think we actually handled your cars and stuff, you know, kind of in that way. We suggested it at the beginning of the meetings and stuff like that, and then we looked at it to see if it was cost effective. And we've got some time right now to go through these things, and Elizabeth can keep on track with what the increases in the ag land and the residential properties are gonna give to us. And she's doing the supplemental abstract, which tells us if anything was decreased or changed that way due to flooding or anything like that. We don't have those issues right now, so.
Well, the
Yeah,
one,
you have one, Steve?
I have one that we're probably gonna try to include in my budget, which is be adding an employee to the drug task force. I'm actually having a meeting later this morning with Travis to go over some of the numbers, but we're looking at probably 30,000 to 35,000 increase from what I'm paying right now.
That's on your overall budget then you're talking?
Well, yeah, I'm not sure which line item we have that under it, I haven't looked up, but right now we're paying about 22,000 a year to the task force. We pay for
1/4 of an employee out of the one guy we have. The city pays half, we pay 1/4, and then the other counties pay. Well, we're adding the second employee, so we're asking the city to pick up 100% of one employee. We'll pick up 50% of the second one, and then the other counties would pick up the other 50%. So we could have two.
All right with that, Steve?
Well, it all hinges on whether the city gets it through or not. If the city doesn't get their funding through, ours falls through. But they come so close together, I almost have to put it in there, just, to see, because I don't think I have time to not put it in and wait for the city to decide yes or no. Preliminary, it looks like yes, the city is, it's fairly positive for doing this, so that's the one big wrinkle that I have coming that I can foresee.
In talking to the city administrator, it looks like they're looking at a $420-some thousand decrease in their budget for the coming year.
And if the city doesn't make it with the city as far as them taking over that one full-time employee, then we can't, I'm not gonna ask to go for, the other, it'll probably fall through. If that makes sense.
So last year, your budget showed 22,000 for,
It's about 60,000 for a full-time employee, 60, that was just salary and benefits, and I think that's what the number came up with, Elizabeth? 50, mid-50 to 60 roughly.
Between all of
And then of course we have other, so we're looking at probably 30 to 35, maybe 40,000 for our share.
and that's combining the two.
Well, that would be, that'd be adding one.
Adding one, but that would be in addition to what the 22.
No.
You're looking
Now,
at
that's including the 22, so the increase is gonna be about 20,000.
20,000, okay.
Cause we won't have the 20, we won't be paying that 22, what we're paying now would be part of what we're paying for the one we're paying for. The city would take 100% the full amount, so it'd be an addition. The 22,000 would go towards our employee, let's put it that way. We wouldn't be paying that towards the other employee.
Yeah, fine.
And then Towner County and Benson County and Cavalier County would pick up the other 50%.
Steve has talked to Mark about this before, yeah. I guess I had forgot about it, but I knew it was there.
We've been thinking about it for, because the numbers are so astronomically high for that one guy, it's, and I can I will have the board some numbers.
Yeah.
But why we're, what the reasoning behind this, but like I said, it all hinges on whether the city decides to, to take on that other 50% away from the rest of us. If we're gonna go ahead with this, so.
Yeah. Well, it's things like that, and if there's any other thoughts from the department heads that, things that you're gonna wanna do in the next year, I think this is a good meeting to bring them out. If you got an equipment purchase, or if you got whatever, something out of the ordinary that you haven't done in the past, let us know. So, when we get into August, it's not such a surprise for everybody. So, one question I had for Elizabeth, bonding. We took some bonds out to pay for road projects. Are any of them running out yet? I mean, I haven't been on the
No.
commission long enough to have.
That may know.
They're 10 years?
No, that was a 20-year bond.
20 year, okay.
Do we have anything big coming off the tax exempt rolls in the coming year?
Elizabeth, do you know of any? I can't think of any.
The only thing I have left is the Joanne.
Joint elevator, and that's what.
I'd have to check a couple of years. It was 5, but not
I think it's
positive.
either 2 or 3 years left.
Oh, okay. So that, there isn't gonna be anything big coming off that we can count on in the end.
Not in the county.
And as far as the city, the increment districts, I haven't heard if they're getting close to paying some of those bonds off. Because once they come off, they'll go as full taxable. I can check with Terry and see how close some of them are.
you don't have to remember the city relies on sales tax. You know, and the state's already telling everybody that it's gonna get drastic, other than that, drastic. You know, we rely on real estate taxes, and everybody knows that, but, I would sure hate to see us bump the real estate taxes up on our people in the county, so. If there's anything we can take off the budgets, at least to hold even. You know, I think that's what we need to look at. And I'm not saying salaries, you know, looking at Tanya's report there, there's some pretty healthy increases. A lot of agencies aren't doing that. A lot of other public identities aren't doing that much. So, I think we all have to be realistic with each other. You know, we survive because of the people that are paying their real estate taxes in Ramsey County. The mills are going up. You know, I think when I started on the commission, I think it was 32,000. So they went up 21,000 probably in 6 years. That's a big increase every year. And that's because of the valuations the state set. I can't believe those valuations next year are gonna stay the same. I think we're gonna see a drop.
We couldn't believe that 12 years ago and it's continuing. And I think Beth will attest to the fact that we do have a lot of new construction, and we are still seeing modest medium increases in real estate valuations. So where you're at like 95%, so we're almost guaranteed to have to go up another 4 or 5% next year to stay within the parameters. So, but it's the ag land values I think are really huge too, and I think we're seeing a decrease in sales values in ag land. So that might taper off and balance out. It's a big swing. And if ag land comes in and says we don't get an increase or a decrease next year, it'll rely totally on residential and commercial, and then we'll feel the pinch. Am I correct in that? Because what did the valuation of ag land put into the budget this year, put into the counties?
2% increase.
But 2%, and that amounts to a lot of money, doesn't it?
Well, the total breakdown on ag land in 15 was, the total valuation of the county was 42.3%. So it's the largest of the
three.
Three, yeah.
And it's been, like you said, since when you got elected in 2010, ag land valuation's gone from 247 million to 430 million. True to full. We're gonna see it at some point in time level off and try to start dropping because it's all off of productivity. And if we start having some tougher years off of dollar figures on total farm incomes, it's gonna start, I mean, it's an Olympic average, so it lags a little bit. But it's gonna start to level off and we're gonna have to deal with it.
On your chart there, what is residential value on?
Residential is at 40.2% last year, and it's moved up quite a bit too.
And how, what?
Since at the same time span since 2010, it's moved from 272 million to 409 million. So it hasn't moved up quite as quickly as
Quite as fast,
valuations, but it's still
Big
it's-
increase.
Yeah, it's moving up markedly. And I think we'll continue to see that. I agree there, but I think the ag land's a real wild card because I mean it's gonna be interesting to see what happens with it, but.
We're the only city in the state right now that has 100% flood protection, and that's why we're seeing a lot of growth around here. People are willing to invest in Delaware.
I think like we talked about at the meeting on Tuesday morning, the 17 budget is going to be, I shouldn't say easy, but it's going to be easier than the 18 budget. Right. Because 17, we have a fairly decent idea of where we're gonna come in at on numbers. 18 is gonna be the absolute.
Yeah.
And that's why I think I agree with Ed to the point we have to continue to move forward in terms of how we're doing things in a good manner. We can't stop investing in ourselves or in infrastructure and things like that or our people, but at the same time, we have to be smart about what we're doing because just off a quick figure, you know, the things that are out there in 18 that we don't know what's gonna happen with, like, we have a feeling that social services is gonna be funded again, but we don't know. If they don't fund it on the buy down, that's 13.5% of our total dollars on our budget currently. So that would be a 13.5% increase we'd have to pick up. If they don't fund property tax relief, which it looks like they're not gonna have the money to do the 12% of buy down if they can only do half. That means in 1 year, we got a 20% increase, we're gonna have to find the dollars to just hold even, not accounting for wage increases or anything.
Pam Sharp from the governor's budget office told us at the Association of Counties meeting that they were gonna bring that 12% strictly into school monies,
Yeah.
and that's how they were gonna,
Yeah, so
Yeah,
the,
so
so it'll,
it
the
wasn't-
12% will basically become 8% or something. But the schools will get 12% on their actual dollars, but we won't get any.
and we won't get any.
Yeah, it'll still help the property taxpayers out in the countryside, but it'll affect our budgeting process.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So I just think we have to have an eye towards the future off of how we budget this year, because otherwise we're gonna just have to fall off a cliff, or we're gonna have to move up drastically if we don't kind of try to level ourselves down where we think. And like I said, if we slowly move our way down this year and things come through and they are able to fund those things, then we'll be in really good shape then. Then we'll be able to fund some things in 18 and probably get some projects done. So that would be a positive thing. But we're gonna have to kind of account for the fact that that's coming down the pike at some point here.
How's another drug task force person going to affect the law enforcement center budget?
That was gonna be my next question. We're gonna have to add some,
We're gonna have to add some, what are we at percentage-wise on the law enforcement center budget today?
I did that spreadsheet for you.
We're at $555,000 through 6 months. Was that through 7 months? Was it coming January?
Well, that spreadsheet that I put on your table, that's going through July, $555,210.35. So we are going to have to transfer what I anticipate all out of the general fund.
So that's,
So what percentage of the budget is that for their law enforcement center budget?
The money coming out of general, or,
They're over.
hold on a second.
so January pays December, so it's a month late, correct?
Yes.
So basically, yeah, we're 7 months through, even though we're 6 months through the year.
Great.
The total budget was $796,000 plus the rental costs, so we're what, 8 something?
At the end of June, we were at 61.77% of our budget used.
And that's at the end of June, so that was through 6 months.
Yeah.
So we're running about 120% of the total budget then probably if we stay on pace.
And that includes the 1 mil
Yeah, so
that we give
that's,
them at the
so that's 796 plus the 50,000.
$50,430.
So that's 846 times 1.2. That's 1.015 million. That's what we're on pace. Just a smooch over 1 million we're looking at right now. It's total LAC budget. If we run it at 120%, give or take.
Well, I mean, again, we can obviously figure if we're gonna add another drug task force individual, our costs are gonna go up exponentially.
I guess that line, you gotta quit convicting people. Come on.
Yeah, well, and how dare we say that?
No, but
I mean,
we
yeah,
have to, but,
It's reality, but
no, the,
it is, but what are we gonna do? We have to protect the people in the county. Ed has said that many times, and it's what we have to deal with.
and that's the reason we're I mean, we're seeing the numbers that the activity is, well, you all know it's there.
yeah, opioid activities up.
So, I mean, yes, it's gonna affect it. How greatly, I don't know that answer. It's gonna increase, I would guess.
Yeah.
But then a lot depends on the courts and a lot depends on other things as well. Other activity, I mean, right now, we're running low on inmates the last few months. You know, from the law enforcement center side. You know, from
Are
where
we
they wanna be.
running low
Numbers-wise.
with our local
Excuse me.
incarcerated, or are we running
No,
low?
we're running low with others, but
Right,
I think we're about average with the local. Because our bill, Our bills are about the same, I think it
And we're
was,
not fluctuating that
what,
much.
60, no, ours isn't fluctuating very much at all.
I guess that's what I was.
8 or 10,000, depending give or here, I think is the difference between the, I think this month's, did you get, this month's bill come in after the meeting on Tuesday, but
Yeah, it was 60.
67,000,
We've been running in that range.
67 to 72 has kind of been well, so we really haven't seen a fluctuation, ours is pretty steady.
Mhm.
Which brings to the next question, are you gonna raise the rates? Is the law enforcement center gonna raise the rates for the coming year, or
That's
do we
what it
need
is.
to know
That's
that?
Mark, did you guys ever come to a determination off of what the break-even dollars were? Cause we talked about that, I don't remember ever hearing a figure.
What was that, Steve, you remember?
I don't remember that. I mean, as far as numbers,
Well, just, I mean, cause we said, you know, how many people does it take a day to break even?
it's in between 85 and 90.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that.
And the
85 to 90
this
per
Somewhere
day.
around 85.
At this point, the $70 a day per inmate is covering costs so far. Are looking
If we were at
an
85 or
increase
90 every day, that we would be pretty much at a break even,
at
or
$70?
a little bit in the black.
That's running a facility without any updates.
No, I know, that's just bare bones keeping.
That's just keeping
the doors
us in the black, that is not
This is
updates
keeping the
or,
doors open,
yes,
that is not
Keeping
any capital
keeping the heat and the
improvements
lights
of
on,
any
keeping the
kind.
doors open.
no.
Does the LEC have any more bonds or loans? I think they're all paid
They
off,
got-
right?
Loans, no.
No loans.
No.
Because they paid the last one off for the reentry center.
There's probably still some CDs in the banks that they can use, but, the fact of the matter is, you know, it's going downhill. I said, when the drug task force person came on, in 2014, that it was gonna be an extreme expense for Ramsey County. We gotta negotiate with the other counties that they get just as much benefit out of it as we do, but we have to pay the bill because they get arrested here, and Ramsey County pays the bill because it's a felony, isn't that true? That they're felony cases.
Anything above a B misdemeanor, which is
Anything
a,
above that, Ramsey County
Just
pays the
depends on
bill,
what
whether
county they
it's
get
the
picked
city
up.
or.
Yeah, whatever
Ramsey,
county they
Benson,
get picked
Town.
up,
When they get picked up in Ramsey, I guess.
then it's
Yeah.
our
They're
responsibility.
from Benson County, I don't know where
One,
they get
I
picked
think
up.
that's part of the problem, I shouldn't say the problem, but it's part of what occurs is that we're the hub city for the area.
Yep.
So people come into town, they get picked up here, I mean, that's just how it works, unfortunately. I mean,
Well, one thing at the law enforcement center, we've talked about is adding another mill. All the counties. And I think that would help our bottom line a lot on the end. It'd help take care of some of the upkeep of the building.
So we-
And that would amount to, whatever the mill is for each county, I don't know exactly what.
Some are 13, and we were up to 50, so
Yeah.
we're still getting offset.
But I think we'll get to either a mill or half a mill. I'm sure we'll get to a half a mill from all the other counties, and that will be the input that they're gonna be putting in there. The other counties, you know, put it bluntly, they're getting a hell of a break. You know, they're getting to use a jail, which they have to belong to a jail according to the century code. So,
well, especially since
and they understand that.
Well,
They understand that
yeah,
fact.
well, the
Yeah, I
mill-
got that through their head.
the mill difference is so much different too, you know?
Correct.
That's the thing,
But
like
they're-
Eddie, and they're smaller, so it
But they're
should,
moving on.
yeah, but I mean, what's Eddie County's mill worth? I mean, it's-
12,000.
Yeah, so basically for $12,000, they're buying into the possibility to use a jail
Wow.
on a daily rate. I mean, it's, like you said, it's a good deal for them, and it's not a bad thing, but it's just,
To start.
at some point, you know, we've gotta start looking at, we're gonna probably have to have a little bit more input on the dollar figure on this thing.
But the outlying counties are understanding, you know, they're seeing what we're spending, to fix the roof, fix the ceilings, fix the windows.
Facility has to stay.
Up, facility update, yeah.
The biggest thing that I see that isn't fair is that drug task force guy though, because we're taking the brunt of it. They arrest more in Ramsey County than they do anywhere else, because this is where the traffic goes on. But they get just as much benefit out of it because they're selling drugs to the kids in their communities too. So they should, everything on the drug task force thing should be split even. And we were negotiating that in 2014. And I think we need to keep doing that.
That's one of the things we put on the table at the law enforcement center meetings.
Yep.
Excuse me.
I it's gonna cost for a drug task force person before we start working on our budgets.
Yeah, and I just brought it up today because we wanted to know what's coming down, and that's kind of what we're looking at, so.
We were working on getting the budgets coordinated too, and I think you should still work on that, guys, because it's a false reading when the law enforcement center budget starts in, on the first of the year, and ours is finalized in October. It gives you a false reading. It's hard to say, figure out how things are working out.
So we finalized ours in October.
Okay, that got done.
You finalize the law enforcement center budget in October as well. Thank you.
It's been.
Well, and I guess I'm encouraged, Ed, by what you're saying about how that the other counties understand a little bit more now,
Yeah,
because
they do.
my issue has always been, you contribute $12,000 plus your incarceration fees per year, and you have as much say in how the law enforcement center is run as does the entities that are paying 100 times that amount.
Actually, they only have one representative.
And we have two, but,
Like Ramsey and.
okay, so
City has-
let's say they have 50% and we have 100%, but the dollar value is not anywhere in the realm of how it goes. And that's been a question I've had. In fact, at one point in time, I believe the law enforcement center board was thinking about adding more members from this county and changing their bylaws in some way.
Well, I apologize if I got us off track. But,
Right.
The fact is that Steve's looking at maybe adding a drug task force. If anybody else has anything else.
Well, and Lonnie had, see in last year's budget, he had looked at adding another employee, and you haven't done that so
I
far.
hadn't done that, but this was gonna be the year I was going to ask for a second paralegal and Martin full-time.
Well, so we're gonna go with assistant attorney, state's attorney to full-time as well then.
Yeah, she's probably in the 3/4 time range, but I was looking at moving her to full-time and getting a second legal assistant.
What do you
Which would
think that would
require
increase your
some
budget?
taking out a wall
So then we gotta fix these.
and,
What do you think that would increase your budget by, Lon?
well, I think a second paralegal will probably be in the 40-42 range to start.
Make
Moving Martin to full-time and, I guess we'd have to look at a market study on what other assistant state's attorneys around the area are, but, this wouldn't be like hiring a new person, right out of law school. She's been practicing law for 31 years.
And my recommendation from my viewpoint is that you should go, give us a high number right now so that we can see what the wages and salaries and increases like that are gonna be, so Elizabeth can figure out what the increases in valuations have done, and then we know where we're at. Anybody who has a wish list should bring it up right now.
I have that bridge in, by Winters, Morris Township, that's probably half of that increase.
So
Well,
it'd be at least 25,000 added to the assistant state's attorney's salary, and then 45 plus,
40 to 50 for a
40 to
paralegal,
50
so
plus
with benefits.
with benefits,
Yeah.
plus benefits.
I think we can safely say it's gonna be 75,000. I think that kind of brings me to, in looking at last year's budgets, the problem we're gonna run into is that if you look at a majority of our department heads, they're on pretty fixed cost. You got salaries, you got office supplies, you got printer, it's pretty bare bones in terms of, there's not a lot of cutting. If we wanna find cutting, we've gotta look at one-time projects, and we've gotta look at, unfortunately, Kevin,
Yeah.
we've gotta look at you. You're the one that has the dollars to find if we're gonna find any kind of decrease, that's where we're gonna have to find it, unfortunately. We kinda have our hands tied, we gotta pay for a jail, we gotta pay for a sheriff's department, we have to pay for printers and salaries, and after that, it's one-time spending. And who's got the one-time spending projects?
That's why we gotta look at the big picture and see where we're at.
Well, and that brings Roger into the picture too. Do you
Yeah, courthouse
have
too.
one-time projects that you?
Yeah, you know, this
No,
year
we're
we
gonna
have a
need-
roof that, that was $90,000 we budgeted for that won't be on for next year. And I hate to pick on Rhonda, but as long as social services doesn't have any big projects, they spring on me after I've done the budget. And say they need to pay for that, but
I have to wait to spring them on you.
I don't have anything.
So we're looking, at least on yours, we'll look at some,
Right,
a decrease
yeah,
because
that'd
the money's
be
done, that's good.
roughly a $90,000 decrease next year over what I had this year.
Good.
So,
Yeah, now we're cooking.
We're here to put pluses and minuses on our page here, so.
Yeah, well, that $90,000 looks pretty sweet. What would happen if you didn't do the Morris Township Bridge?
you're fine with me, there's another road.
Yeah,
They can detour.
Honestly, it's only 4 or 5 miles away, and that, in the big picture, 4 or 5 miles isn't much nowadays. 45 is a lot, but not 4 or 5.
Was there any funding coming down on that from the state or the Fed?
No, we tried a lot of avenues on that one, and shot down on all of them.
Town sheriff told us that there won't be any money for that anyway, there won't be any gravy coming out of it.
Well, there can't be.
Well, yeah, no.
And then we pursued it, and that just didn't meet all the qualifications, so we couldn't even use the money from before.
Yeah. Do you have any money left now that you still have to spend, that?
Yeah, we'll have another project next year, but that, we have the state funding for that.
Yeah.
Well, that'll be about $1 million, but again, that's 100%
That's
state money,
100%,
so.
I guess, in your budget, what do we have this year? Do we have anything we're assessing for locally this year that we're not gonna have to assess for next year projects or anything like that?
No, but you know, there's always 1 or 2 that comes up, but right now, no.
Yeah, cause, I mean, your numbers kinda get a little skewed since there's so much state money rolling through there and federal
Yeah,
money.
$2 million worth of state money in my budget, which will
Yeah, which will just,
poof disappear.
it's gone.
Mm-hmm, you'll be gone. You're not, I'm not gonna call you and have you say, well, I got all kinds of money to spend?
No, that's changing.
It's changing.
Might be a project.
It might be beneficial for us, Madam Chairman, just to go through the list here and office by office, and then when they're done, they can just, as well go back forward.
Well, I just want them all to see what we're looking at as far as where we're at with the direction we're taking and how each individual office can think about going about cutting in any way that they can. Kristen, do you anticipate a loss of state income? You know, I know half of your salary is paid by the state.
It is actually, our EMPG grant, which pays roughly half, maybe a little less than half of my, of my salary, or my budget, I should say, came in and it stayed on par this year. So we didn't see a super dramatic decrease with that. So that's been, it was pretty equal to what last year's was, so that was nice. As far as any projects out of my office, I'll continue to do our exercises on my own, so it costs the county nothing. I've always planned them and followed them through, along with the help of the first responders around the area and the county. Our multi-hazard mitigation plan is due, it's almost done, and that'll have to be turned around in 4 years to restart that project. And quite frankly, it's so much work that it wouldn't be something I'd want to tackle on my own. And if there's another grant, I would apply. If not, in about 4 years, you can expect that project to run about $35,000.
But not for 4 years.
Not for 4 years. So we're good right now.
But I'm pretty sure Kristen's budget or what's coming down from the state to her, was like what Adam said, 17 is all right. No, I think 17's budget, we're gonna be all right. 18.
I don't know what 18 will bring though.
18 after the next legislative session is when we're gonna see.
that'll
black
be,
and white program.
that'll be a nail biter to see what we.
Well, it's just a matter of, I just don't wanna shock the people that,
Right,
and
I
all of
agree
a
with
sudden it's, we've gotta go a huge increase or something just to stay par with what we're doing now. I mean,
Right.
that'll be tough.
Oh,
That's
so it would be
what's gonna
nice to,
happen.
right, it would be nice to do something gradual this year so that next year doesn't look like such an axe
And
cut.
then, yeah.
Axe cutting for our offices and then such a huge increase
Well,
for our taxpayers.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess I look at it from the aspect of, like we're talking about, we wanna be the premier employer, we wanna pay good wages. Well, our hands are fairly well tied on our budget in terms of where we can find savings. So even if we cut pretty much to the bone in 18, we're gonna have to increase taxes. I mean, it'll have to be a market increase. At the same time, when the farm economy isn't very good, and then you're gonna be looking at an accounts receivable problem possibly, and not getting taxes paid on time. You never know what's gonna happen. I mean, you're gonna have a kind of a storm, so we have to anticipate the storm at this point in time and attempt to budget our way out of it, hopefully.
I made a comment the other day on the phone. Pam Sharp told us that they, and they might rehire people who retire from human services and stuff like that, but they're not gonna take anybody's food stamps away, or they're not gonna,
Wanna bet?
they're not gonna cut
I don't believe that.
necessary services that people need to survive.
Well, they're
No.
That's what Pam told us.
they're gonna put a hiring freeze on them, sure.
Yeah.
That's a common thing.
Well, and I guess I could argue with that because they've already cut home services to people that were in half to people that we're trying to keep in their homes rather than put in nursing homes. So I'm not buying that they're not gonna let anybody starve to death. Like, yeah, I don't
Just
think
pass
they
the
will.
message on.
Yeah, well, but I mean, I'm not buying that because I think that's where the cuts are gonna come. And then on that note, we're trying to talk about putting addiction counseling services in where they're needed. And those to me are some of the most vulnerable people in our county. And if we don't do it this year, we're sure as heck not gonna do it next year.
That was the top priority at the Association of Counties meeting.
Exactly, and that's what Terry said.
And the legislature is going to struggle with that.
Well, like Adam said, the 17 budget, what's coming down from the state is basically not going to change a lot. Like you said, 18 is going to want to see what the legislative session does.
Unless they have a special session.
That's not
That's not gonna happen. You're sure that's not gonna happen?
That's a lot more now.
It's July, they're going to meet in January. I can't believe it's going to happen.
Okay. Well, and if, I guess that's good for us, correct? That they won't do a special session.
With the change of governor, you might be surprised what happened.
Anybody else got additions in their budgets that they were thinking about making? I thank you for bringing those forward. Stacy?
I have no, there's been no other conversation about combining with Benson, so I'm gonna assume that that's not gonna happen in the near future. One thing, the tobacco tax issue will more than likely pass. They've got the signatures to get it on the ballot, so that will most likely pass, so that in the future, the state might take over the budgets for veteran service.
Oh, really? Get rid of the tobacco tax?
Yep,
Really?
the increase in the tobacco.
Yeah, the increase in tobacco.
Do you still want our budgets by the 20th, Betty?
Yes.
On the tobacco tax, is it in the signature process, is there stipulations on where the money goes?
Exactly.
And on
Yeah, the legislature can't touch it.
Because some of it's gonna go to public health, I would assume,
Yep,
and some
yep.
of it would be
Yep.
for veteran services. Okay.
Yeah, that was our pie in the sky 2 years ago, was that the public health would funding because of the tobacco tax. Didn't happen in the last session, it was killed by the legislators in the last session under the no new taxes blanket. So this way, if it comes as a mandate from the people, it has a much better chance of passing.
Well, and, I mean, this isn't necessarily to do with these department heads here, but like district health, where are we at on that budget? I mean,
Well, they've been so bare bones for years, they don't even do market studies, because when they do market studies, it shows that they're second lowest in the state of North Dakota.
I mean,
They don't do market studies on salaries, because all that shows is that they're the lowest paid people in the state. The budget, as far as that goes, has been a bare bones budget for years. It's only been the last 2 or 3 years that they've even gotten a cost of living increase on their salary. So that being said, and that being the biggest part of the budget,
salaries.
it's salaries. We've increased the fees for environmental services, and people have, I find it interesting that the people in Rolla and Rolette County are really squawking about that, but they don't belong to our district health unit. They just get the benefit of the service, but they don't belong to our district health unit, so they don't pay anything except the fees and a small stipend from the state for providing the fees. It's for providing the services, excuse me. So as far as that goes,
Well, the only reason I ask is, I mean, what we've talked about, it's a matter of, you know, a lot of the public health nurses and things like that, they're getting towards retirement age. And I don't know where our staffing is currently, but.
we've got a young
And-
staff, which
yeah,
is nice.
Which is nice, I mean, because in order to attract new staff, you usually have to
Yeah.
be competitive with what's out in the marketplace. I mean, it's tough to attract new staff otherwise, and that's why, you know, I think you take care of salaries first. You always take care of salaries first.
And that's,
Without the staff, you can't get the job done.
I would welcome that, and I'm even wondering if we shouldn't have a second commissioner on the district health board rather than having an at-large commissioner, because we understand that. I've always been a proponent of it. The other counties all have 2 county commissioners. Ramsey's the only one that doesn't, and about 75% of the budget is paid by Ramsey County. So again, it's a matter of how the boards are set up and representation for the people of the county, which is probably not a part of this conversation, but it's something to think about anyway.
I wasn't trying to get us on task. I was just-
No, I'm sorry, but yeah, but you're absolutely right. Alan did hire Tanya to do a market study. It was supposed to be here in I think, they hired her in February, and she still hasn't gotten it back to them. So we're hoping that it'll be back
Okay, well,
by the 26th of July when our next meeting is.
yeah, and, you know, kind of this thing, I think Bill mentioned it, you know, we're gonna, our department heads are hopefully on the same page, and I think we all are, but we're gonna see some of the other departments come in too with, I'm sure they're, you know, nothing's getting cheaper, let's just put it that way.
Right. Katie, is that issue that you had with the bad, I don't even,
My images.
the bad scanning?
Yep.
Has that been solved? You've got that fixed?
Yeah, it's not finished yet, but the bad images are with US Imaging now to be enhanced, and then once they get those back to me, then that'll be all.
So you won't need additional money in your budget next year for that?
No, and actually that comes out of the preservation fund, that doesn't come out.
So
of
that
the
doesn't
fund
even come out of your
Yeah,
budget?
that's
Okay.
that's all fee-based dollars.
Right, and I can actually shift some of more of my budget to the preservation dollars.
Oh, you
Because
can?
Elizabeth and I were talking about it. I don't have a very big budget to begin with,
No, you
and
don't.
80 to 90% of it is salaries.
Mhm.
But I can still shift more of it, and it doesn't really amount to much, but I guess every little bit helps, right?
Well, as long as you're not, you know, you're not cutting that fund to the point where you can't do any of the projects, you know. I mean, I'm not saying that, I mean,
I
you wanna
pretty much
at least
wait till the
allow it
money
to
is
build, you
there.
know.
When the money is there, we talk about a project.
Yeah,
If the
and
money
that's- I
isn't there, you
understand.
don't, okay.
Right.
That's a good way to look at it.
Today is just to inform the department heads and everybody that by the time you turn in your budget, that you want to identify these things and let us know. You know, basically, that's what it is.
Right. We're not making any,
We don't need you to make a commitment today, do you?
but to be thinking about it.
That's just to get us on the same, just to get us on the same page,
Mhm.
so we're all where we're at. I don't think we never did technically make a decision on where we're going with salary.
That's correct.
Well, that sounds like we're kind of all on the same page, so I'll make the motion that we'll go with the 2017 proposed market movement plus the 1% cost of living increase. As proposed by Tanya on the page, so that our department heads have something to pencil with.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion?
Just keep in mind that we can't go up after we make a decision. So don't take anything out of your budget unless you're positive you can do it.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Come with the budget that you're
And make sure
dreaming
you,
for.
and make sure you put into
but
your
with
budget
income
what you want,
conversations,
as far as the task force and as far as the assistant state's attorney and recorder.
yeah, accordingly.
And if, I don't know, I think Rhonda told us earlier this week that she's going to be cutting, possibly cutting a position and maybe a position and a half. So, are you sure?
No, I'm not totally sure. It changed a little bit yesterday with the news, the email that we got from the Department of Human Services that they reversed their decision to cut home and community-based services to elderly people in half. They restored that funding, found the money, so that was very, very interesting, and it was an interesting email, so I'm not sure what happened there. I just wanted to say we are affected by drug task force arrests also. We get kids into care because of that, so I don't have numbers obviously, but we could go back and look at why kids are in foster care, and there's more than likely a drug bust arrests related to it, so.
And I really appreciate the fact that you guys are working so closely together and the court system, the social services and the law enforcement to coordinate the efforts to see those vulnerable people taken care of.
Yeah, I spoke with Commissioner Brown last week, and the one area that I saw that we would have some increases was after the legislative changes with the assessing, our costs went up for training. An example would be our classes were $140 and they're now $400. And it's because they went to the International Association of Assessing Officers putting it on. They're bringing in people from out of state to do all of our training. It's universal. However, I don't feel that it's going to be a big change in our budget because I think I found some areas where I can shift money to make it at least come out even. But that was one area that our training costs. The other thing in training is that we haven't been doing in the past few years is we weren't partaking in any of our software training with our software provider, which we just did recently, but we had some hours available and they do give us a few hours each year. And that was what I was somewhat hoping to do again this year just because with 2 new people and even myself, the more, our software is very complicated, the more you know about it, the more accurate and the better assessments you can provide and get everything uniform. But we can make it work, either way. But that was the one thing that I was hoping to put a little money into.
So you're talking a little money, how much money are you talking?
No, that would be about $2,000 for a year for that training to do, so.
$2,000 I can swallow.
Yeah, that was one, and like I said, I did find some areas where we can probably use.
Well, I think in your department, what that does is that gives us more revenue when you have better training, so I don't have an issue with that.
It's a must.
It's
Money
a
well
must.
spent there.
Yeah.
No choice.
It's well, it's a must, you're right. Anything else?
We never voted on it.
Oh, that, okay. So we have a motion and a second on the floor to go with the proposed market movement with a 1% cost of living increase for the 2017 proposed budget. Roll call, please.
Brown,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Martins, Lightfon,
Aye.
Heisler.
Aye. Anything else that we need to discuss on the upcoming budget with our department heads? With that, I'd like just to reiterate, take these numbers back and see how they're gonna fit in your budget for the coming year. And again, don't cut yourself so short that we can't go up if we have to. And I think we know where we're headed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're adjourned.